It's a huge relief when your baby starts to sleep soundly through the night, and an opportunity to regain some normality with your own sleep opportunities. So what do you do when your baby, who's been sleeping well, starts to refuse to settle? If your baby's sleep pattern suddenly changes, then there's no need to stress. It's actually a healthy sign. Sleep consultant Catherine Thompson prefers to view this as more of a developmental milestone instead of a sleep regression. In this episode, I talk with Catherine about what she likes to refer to as brain progression. Catherine shares a number of tips and suggestions to help you both move through this milestone. I'm infant massage instructor Helen Thompson. Hello and welcome to First Time Mums Chat. Being a parent for the first time is challenging and changes your life in every way imaginable. To help ease your transition into parenthood, I aim to offer supportive, holistic approaches and insights for mums of babies aged 4 weeks to 10 months old. My goal is to assist you to become the most confident parent you can and smooth out the bumps along the way. This podcast is brought to you by My Baby Massage, so let's do this together. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Please contact a medical practitioner if you are concerned or have any medical issues. Hi Catherine, welcome back to First Time Mums Chat. It's lovely to have you back here again. And as we discussed, this podcast is going to be about sleep progression rather than regression.
Lovely, Helen. Thanks for having me back. It's wonderful to be here. Yeah, so a widely talked about topic in the parenting world.
So I'm first of all going to ask you, what I know I've heard all about sleep regression, but what exactly is sleep regression?
Sure. So baby sleep regression refers to the periods, which usually can be anywhere between sort of 2 to 6 weeks, when your baby, let's say, regresses in their sleep patterns. There can be a variety of reasons why this might happen, but feel assured that it's normal. It's actually a healthy indicator that your baby is developing. So there can be a number of reasons for these regressions. Main reasons, generally a mental leap or a developmental milestone. These are natural sort of, emotional, physical changes, cognitive, changes for your baby that can alter their sleep and I guess their ability to settle a little bit. I think babies can also regress in their sleep if their, I guess, regular patterns or routine have been disrupted a little bit. Sometimes when they're unwell, they can also acquire a bit more comfort and their sleep can change a little bit too. And then any sort of, I guess, emotional stress or change in environment, things such as separation anxiety that can also influence sleep and settling.
Yeah, and I guess I was just thinking when you said that, if they're going through the stages of crawling and rolling, well, depending on the age, but I'm thinking of crawling and rolling over and sort of beginning to sort of have a lot more movement and being taken to the park and having more exercise, I guess they might be either overtired or overstimulated, so they might regress. Would that be a reason as well?
Yeah, so naturally when we see these, I guess, developmental milestones occur, and 6 months is typically, I guess, one that, and every baby again goes through these, I guess, leaps at different stages. So 6 months old is generally one that associates with crawling sometimes. And definitely, you can see, some parents may see a change to their baby's sleep during that period of growth, but others, some not. So every baby responds to these Yeah, definitely. And some babies may go through a full regression at this stage. Others, it just may affect them to a small extent. So yeah, it's, I guess, trying not to feel too overwhelmed about what may happen, because there's a lot of talk about this subject.
And when you say full regression, I'm sort of thinking, is there a half regression? I mean, when you say full regression, what do you mean exactly by full regression?
I mean, in the sense that some babies' sleep may really be, sleep is definitely influenced by temperament. And, every baby finds falling asleep differently, to others. So some find it easier than others. And during these mental leaps, it may really affect some individuals more than others. So I guess being in tune, if you can, with your baby and what calms them, what settles them, and supporting them as best as you can when they need it would be really great.
Yeah, I just thought of something again when you said that. I've actually had a mum who I look after their baby sometimes, and she said to me that when she was the baby or growing up, even in adulthood, she doesn't sleep very well. Even now, she wakes up in the night, and she says that she's told me it's a sort of family trait, and her son doesn't do it very well. You can't generalize, but I just sort of wondered what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, so I think, again, temperament and that comes into play with, I guess, a little bit of genetics there. There is a link there to a certain degree, but how we respond as parents is definitely
more important. Yeah.
Also, that also influences how babies learn and develop this skill, which is a skill of falling asleep. It is a learned skill. So it takes a developmental maturity, both physically and emotionally, to be able to manage this skill, and it takes time.
I mean, some adults don't sleep very well, so how can we expect a little baby to sleep well all the time? So, do you have any tips for first-time mums on how to survive their baby sleep regression or progression, whatever? Yeah. So definitely, I think one of the big things would be reaching out firstly to, a partner or friends and family for, support and maybe some time to catch up on some sleep if you're a bit sleep deprived. Lack of sleep is, definitely can take its toll on people. And as a mum myself, I've been through, I've had times when my children have been unwell and sleep definitely has been affected for a stage, knowing that it's a moment, a stage and that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah.
And trying to stick to their patterns, and I try and avoid the word routine, but, I like a flexible routine. Setting up those predictable events leading up to sleep and naps. If you can't get your baby to sleep in the day for those day sleeps, then I'm a big believer in, rather than battling that sleep and your baby becoming overtired and you becoming very stressed in the process, then offering that sleep in a pram, or or popping them in the carrier for a walk, just to encourage that rest and encourage, so that we're avoiding overtiredness, because overtiredness just,
it gets, yes, I've experienced that.
Yeah, following their lead, responding to their cues, looking out for those tired signs, and, winding down before sleep is also another key one.
And I guess from me in a childcare and baby massage stuff, I feel that having not too much TV and loud noise, and just having sort of, as you say, quiet time and stories and maybe some relaxing music, and set that as a routine at certain times of the day, so they know that when they hear Enya or when they hear Vivaldi or whatever it is you choose, that's my, they get the cue that they've got to wind down.
That's right. So, creating that that moment of quietness for your baby to, or toddler to, I guess, get in that sleepy state and prepare, so the brain is preparing for sleep. So, they say for children under 2 years of age, no screen time is the advice. Definitely avoiding screens, prior to bedtime, at least an hour before, if your child's older than 2. But 15 to 30 minutes of winding down, looking at some books with your baby or your toddler. When they're a toddler, giving them the ability to make choices. Toddlers love to be independent.
Yes, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And they also like to challenge us, which is part of their job, right?
It's a good job they have at that. That's a very good job. They're very good at that.
Yeah. A really wonderful lady called Janet Lansbury, who I follow a lot and who's been a great resource for me as a parent and a professional. But, she says if a toddler's not testing you, then they're not doing their job. So, I think but really winding down just can make such a difference with settling. Yes. It really can do from experience.
Yeah, and I know it's sometimes quite hard for parents to do that because they come home from work and they just want to get the tea ready, get everything done. So they just plonk their kid in front of the TV, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with, but I personally don't agree with it. But they do that. And of course, then they wonder why their kids aren't going to go to sleep because they've had too much screen time. So.
Yeah, screen time can make a massive difference to settling and sleep, but doing things like a nice bath, like you said, massage is a lovely one. Lots of verbal reassurance, so talking through what you're doing with your baby, talking through emotions as well, especially in those toddler years. So labeling, I know you're feeling sad, but, mummy's here for you, or I know you're feeling tired. So yeah, encouraging that day sleep, because day sleep really makes a difference to night sleep.
And as a parent yourself, have you got, and a sleep consultant, but I guess as a mum and as a parent, have you got anything that you can really sort of say to a mum that's reassuring, that can help them if they're having a really tough time, both as a parent and as a sort of professional sleep consultant as well?
Yes. Well, as I said, I've had moments in my life where I've definitely been tired and been struggling with settling for various reasons, illness being one of them. And I think, having my partner around was a big help. So reaching out for support if you can, catching up on some sleep where possible, trying to remember that, it is a short phase in time, and that with a bit of a transition, and I don't want to say a bit of hard work, but I guess a bit of concentration and effort being put on trying to get things back to how they were again, things will fall back in place. And there's, lots of people out there for support. So, trusting in those healthcare professionals, so your local child and family health nurses, reaching out to your GP if you're feeling overwhelmed with it all. So looking after you is really important.
Yeah, of course.
Because it can get very overwhelming when your baby isn't sleeping and you're not getting enough sleep and you're finding it hard to settle them.
And do you think patting and rocking and dummies are a good option, or is there any other sort of things that you might think is better than? I don't like dummies, but that's just my own personal preference. But, rocking and patting, because as a childcare worker, I've often pat kids to sleep. Some of them love it. Some of them like the touch, and others just push me away and just sort of and say no. So is there any sort of tips on that?
Yeah, so with settling, and I guess settling strategies, I generally would never sort of start introducing those until around that 10 to 12 week mark of age, purely because your little baby isn't generally emotionally and physically ready for that. Okay. So lots of cuddles and comfort up until then, and support to find sleep. It is I guess it's probably most likely going to be needed because your little baby is just, been inside, utero.
In your utero, yep.
Yeah. And now it's in the big wide world. So lots of support to find sleep until then. But definitely I'm a big believer in white noise. I'm using white noise for settling, giving a bit of a shush. So shushing your baby. So shh, like that. Patting definitely, I think,
and
can help.
Heartbeat as well is part of white noise.
Yeah. So patting to the rhythm of a heartbeat is can be useful. And again, just really watching and looking at how your baby responds to these is gonna, I guess, best support you and your baby, because some babies, like you said, Helen, don't really like to be touched or have that contact. Respecting their space, I guess, as well, to find sleep is another one. So looking at this, listening for those cries, if your baby's grizzling or having a bit of a fuss, then respecting that and seeing if those cries taper off. So we're allowing them, and I guess we're observing them and seeing what they're capable of. So when we look at when I look at settling with infants and toddlers, I definitely look at a response-based approach. So responding and promoting trust and security to your baby.
Some parents say that they go back in and out of the room all the time. Like one parent will go in and pat them and stay with them for a while and then sort of gradually go out the door, or they have an approach where then a dad might do something differently. But I would have thought the approach of just gently either patting them or choosing not to, whichever one, or just sitting there with them and gradually getting up and moving out of the door. And if they whinge or they cry a little bit, just to keep going and just sit outside the door and see how they go. Is that a positive approach, you would say, or not?
Definitely, yes. I think, just consistency is ideal if you can with whatever you approach as a family you choose to do. And, having a chat with your partner be, I think something, that would be really great. Like if you were to just chat it out and say what you feel comfortable with. And I guess it all comes down to family culture and beliefs and looking at that. But definitely, I think being with your baby, and I guess the end goal is if your baby's calm, when we look at settling, if your baby's calm, then let's just sit back and see what your baby does. Because that's how we really get to, observe them and observe what they're capable of. If your baby cries out for you, then I would be then going in with a bit of patting and a bit of shushing to see if that helps calm them. And if they're calm, then I would stop that and sit next to them for a little bit and see how they respond and go from there.
Yeah. And so when would you sort of finally sort of leave the room? Would you just, and if they're calm, then I would try walking away from them. And again, wait, listen, see what happens. And then if they cry again, if you walk out and they've cried again in 2 minutes, would you automatically go back in again, or would you say, no, I'll let them cry just for another minute and just see what happens? Like, with the controlled crying So I'm not a believer in, controlled crying. Neither am I, but I just... So, I would wait sort of 3 to 4. Again, if they're protest sort of forceful cries, then that's when I would be suggesting mum, dad goes in and is there to support your baby. And if the cries continue to be like that and your baby isn't managing and is distressed, then definitely pick them up and try and give them some support there. No, I'm glad you say that, because I'm not a great believer in controlled crying. I've had that so much in childcare, and you just put the baby in the cot and you let them cry, and I just cringe. I sit outside thinking, oh God, what do I do? I don't want to leave them crying, but it's just one of the things that I've had to do. I just feel so awful. Yeah, it's not pleasant at all. And it's, I think all of my approaches are in line with an infant mental health approach, from experience, building trust, building that security, nurturing that baby to develop this skill
ultimately, helps them to find sleep. That's the big thing, really. Building that trust, knowing that mum, dad, carer will come when they really need you to come.
And just before we finalize, is there one magical tip that I know we've had a lot of tips here, but is there one particular magical tip that you give a first-time mum who's really struggling and panicking and thinking, oh, help, what do I do? What magical tip would you...
With regards to sleep progression, or just with regards to sleep?
I guess in regards to sleep regression, because that's what we're talking about.
Sure. I would just say, follow your baby's lead, follow their cues, follow that need for sleep. I'm not a believer in waking babies. So follow their need for sleep. And whilst they're going through this, I guess, period of growth, and if they're struggling with sleep, then offer them that sleep in the day, wherever you can and wherever possible, so that it doesn't become too overwhelming for both of you.
No, that's a good tip. Thank you so much for coming on to this podcast with me, Catherine, again. And I've really enjoyed talking to you again. It's been great. And I look forward to having sort of further chats with you sort of down the line.
Lovely. Thanks so much, Helen. It's been lovely taking part in it.
Catherine shared some great tips on what you can do to help everyone get through a baby's sleep regression. Catherine has also written an article, How to Proactively Manage Baby Sleep Regression, which you can access from her website. I have included a link to this article in the show notes at mybabymassage.net/podcast/019. I have also started a new Facebook group called First Time Mums Lounge, so please join us and you'll gain access to tips to help you and your baby through the beginning stages of your journey. You can access this group by going to mybabymassage.net/Facebook. And thank you so much for listening.